Hey everyone, thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we've got kind of a cool topic that I want to talk about, but first, I know you're all wondering it. Yes, I did cut my hair. So in the first two videos that I did, I had really long hair. You'll probably see that time to time. I'm very, very bad at getting my hair cut, so I let it grow and then I cut it. But today is not about my hair. As much fun of a video that would be, not fun at all. That's not what we're here to talk about. Today I'm going to talk about whether or not Christians should be using social media. So before I do, I just want to kind of start with a preface, right? So we live in what is called the digital age. We're surrounded by technology. We're in an online always world, especially here in America. We are surrounded by technology and just this online presence. You wake up in the morning to an alarm clock, and for most of us, we use our phones, right? That's the first thing that we might see in the morning. You turn your alarm off, and maybe you scroll through, check a couple notifications or emails, then you get up and make a cup of coffee, and what do most of us do? We then get on our phone again and check just a few minutes later, right? This is just what we've been conditioned and what we so often do. So what can we do to help mitigate our addiction, if you will, to checking our phones, to being online, to using social media? I think it's perfectly acceptable to want to use social media, right? As Christians, we have these tools and these ways to share the gospel, and social media can be a tool, right? But there are also a couple times in which I would say it's not healthy to have social media or use it at all, right? So I want to kind of break down that area and then break down how to use social media well. Alright, so if you have constantly compared yourself to others and you're not able to control that, then maybe social media isn't a great idea to be using. A lot of what it is to the world is something to compare each other to, right? You scroll through and you see these people on these great vacations, you see others doing just different experiences that you might want to do. Dressing the way that you might want to dress, sounding the way that you might want to sound. And if this is just something that you struggle with, like many of us, then maybe social media isn't a great idea. But if you do want to keep social media and you struggle with this, as so many of us do, then another option is just to mitigate the amount of time that you're using it and how you're using it. So I just have a couple tips on how to use Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it might be just a lot less and not be distracted by it so often. So my first tip is to delete it off of your phone. If this is something that you can do, if you don't work on social media, then I recommend deleting it off of your phone if you check it too much. On most phones now you can check your screen time and how long you've been on an app. And if it's over, I would say a half hour a day to an hour a day, maybe that's too much for you. So maybe deleting it off your phone and only checking it on your computer or tablet at home is a better way to go. This is a way to just free up a lot of time during your day and keep you from checking your phone so often. Another tip, my second tip that I have, is turning off notifications. So if you struggle with, getting a notification on your watch or your phone and checking it every time that you hear that bell or feel a buzz on it, then I recommend just putting your phone on silence mode. This is something that is really helpful, especially if you have a phone that can turn on a do not disturb mode. This is also a great way to just not get notifications nearly as much. This has helped me a lot with not checking my phone personally, so that's something I definitely recommend. So my third tip with mitigating the amount of times you're checking social media is to use an app that limits the amount of time you can actually get on an app. So there's one called Freedom and another called Space. Those are two that I recommend on both iOS and Android. This just helps to give you only a certain amount of time on whatever apps it is that you might be addicted to or are on too often in any given day. This is another great alternative. And ultimately, if you're going to keep social media on your phone and use it regularly, what is a good way for a Christian to use it in the first place? So there are a couple obvious things that you probably shouldn't be doing on social media. Anything nefarious or that goes straight up against the Bible, don't do that. Just It's not something you should be doing. Another thing might be commenting on people's other posts angrily, right? You see something you don't agree with, and the first instinct that you might have, I know that this is something I always have to practice not doing, is then going and putting my opinion, or even if it's the truth, not just going on there and ranting about it, right? Most people aren't going to be swayed on their opinion based on what you comment on their post, right? And this also just doesn't send a great picture of the love of Christ to others. Another thing that might not be a great idea is using your social media for a ton of political uses, right? So if all you ever do is post who you should vote for, or like those types of things, that's not the best use for social media. If there's something you need to stand up for, right, like different things from a Christian's perspective that clearly are a topic of issue, then you can make your piece and say a word or two on that. But it shouldn't be everything that you talk about being political. And then another great way to use social media is to share the gospel, right? This is such a great platform that you can use, whether it's sharing pictures from Sunday morning or a Wednesday night activity, or just hanging out with friends, going over the word, whether it's a post about a Bible verse, whether you're just sharing your testimony or little videos on what God is doing in your life. These are all just different ways in which you can use social media to glorify God. This should really just be the primary use for social media as a Christian. We should still care about each other and about what's going on in our lives, but we should care more about how God is working in our lives. Another piece to this puzzle of whether or not Christians should use social media is how we view social media. Yes, it is a tool, kind of like I was mentioning earlier. It's less like a hammer. This is a tool that you use and you wield it to hammer down nails, and you are forming it into what you need it to be. The kind of tool that online social media is more of something that can form who you are. And so there's this danger of viewing social media, online presence, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, any of these platforms that you might be using. There's a danger of not viewing it correctly. Don't view it as something that you can change, but view it as something that can change you if you're not careful in setting up safeguards against, so that it doesn't change who you are. This is a kind of tool that can manipulate you, that can be dangerous. And so you need to set up these different things in your life, whether it's just someone who keeps you in check, or using an app to keep you from using it, or whatever it might be. This is something that you need to set up for your own personal life. Setting up boundaries and different things along those lines. So social media is dangerous. It can change who you are and it can change the lives of others. So I'm hoping that this video, some of these ideas, tips and tricks have maybe just changed your view on what the internet is, how social media works, how it's not necessarily a tool like a hammer is in that perspective, but rather that it's something that you should use for good if you're going to use it, and not use it to promote just your ideas and opinions, but rather to promote Jesus and the gospel. How do people view you online? Do they view you as a Christian, or do they view you as just another person using social media? I want to leave you with that question, and definitely comment down in the comments if there's any other video ideas that you would like, if there are any other tips or tricks that you have, or what are your opinions on using social media as a Christian, and should you even use it as a Christian? Yeah, so just leave those down below, and I'll see you guys next week.